All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast Transcend. I'm Jami Christine, and I am a spiritual life coach, author, and entrepreneur. And today I've got Rebecca Merrill with me from Scottsdale, Arizona. She is a nutritionist, nutrition coach, and certified fitness specialist. Welcome to Transcend.
Thank you, Jami. I'm so excited to be here. It's going to be exciting to have a chance to talk a little bit about that holistic side of nutrition and how it fits to our greater well-being.
Absolutely. I've been passionate about this myself, probably since my own fitness journey began back in 2012. So talking to someone who specializes in the field has been something I've really been looking forward to.
Yay. Well, I sure hope I can help.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in. Tell me more about what exactly a nutrition coach is.
Well, a nutrition coach is a relatively new concept, I think. And it really comes from, so many people know that they should lose weight or they should lower their risk of heart disease or maybe help stabilize their blood sugar to avoid getting type 2 diabetes or maybe maintain it if they're already there. Or possibly even, you maybe been diagnosed with a food allergy and you just are like, what do I do? How do I navigate through this? So a nutrition coach can be helpful for you to get to your end. So if your doctor says you need to work on your blood sugar needs to be lower, your A1C needs to be better, or you need to lose weight, great, that's a nice concept, but what do you do? How do you get there? So a nutrition coach can help. I can basically look at what your goals are and really help to determine what might be a good avenue for you to go. If you're, we talk and we find out that you might be, having issues with snacks at night or stress or all sorts of different things that might be affecting your nutritional status, then I can certainly help create some steps along the way to get there. So one of the great things, as a nutrition coach, you can come into someone's life and help them in any way that they need help with. So, a lot of people need help just kind of sorting through all the noise of what's good and what's bad and how do I know? One thing says carbs are bad, but then I'm supposed to eat whole grains, so it can just be very confusing.
Oh gosh,
So
yeah.
hopefully I could help someone with that, whether it's coming into your home and looking at the foods that you currently eat, to go taking a trip to the grocery store. Let's find out how to pick good produce and let's learn what we can do. Maybe we can come over and do, a cooking lesson and talk about some new ways to create things. So, it really is an individualized approach to helping someone achieve their desired nutritional status.
I love that. That's really awesome. And when you said diet noise, that really struck a chord with me because yes, that is such a problem right now. And that's such a good way to word it. There's diet noise. And I've myself been caught up in it. Just which way do you go? What do you do? And I've tried different things that made sense on paper. Like somebody will explain the science behind a certain way of eating, and then I'll try it and it turns out to be a complete fail and I feel miserable and nothing worked. And it's like, okay, like the keto diet, for instance, I tried that. I followed it by the book according to what it's supposed to be. And oh my gosh, I felt terrible. My energy levels were just gone. I was fatigued and tired and drained all the time. I couldn't, like, my muscle strength wasn't what it used to be when I was working out at the gym. And I'm like, this is the exact opposite of what I was trying to achieve. And then I completely plateaued weight wise too. Like nothing. Like my body was just like, no, what are you doing to me? I don't like it.
I too. I had a brief thought just because, some of, so I have better understanding to try different diets and kind of see what it's all about. I was the same way. Keto can be a very effective diet for some people, but the problem I think with the diet noise and all of this conversation is that it kind of has this, okay, everyone should do keto, stop eating carbohydrates. It's just, and that's not the case. I mean, we are all individual biochemical human beings that have their own needs and balances to really thrive. So it's the same thing, like, there's a lot of folks out there that are really into plant-based eating. And I too am a big proponent of that, but it's not for everybody to go completely without any animal products. So it's
I've actually had personal experience with that too, because I did try to be vegetarian for a while. Because again, the science behind it was making sense that I had read into. But
Mhm.
yeah, same thing. It's like I noticed all kinds of different negative effects, in my opinion, where I just was not feeling like myself. And as soon as I incorporated animal protein back in, or animal foods back in, I felt better. But I know people who feel better when they only eat a plant-based diet. So
And and that's just back to that, our own individuality, that everybody's different. In my studies, I've looked at a lot of different concepts, and there's even, I've studied some Ayurveda, and I've studied some, like, even the blood type diet, on first glance might seem to be a little hokey, but there's a lot of science behind it, and it makes sense. I'm personally an O blood type. And so O blood types they're one of the older blood types. They have a lot more stomach acid. They definitely do better with some animal protein. And that's exactly what I felt when I tried to be vegetarian for a year, and I, you know, really approached it with lots of different foods, really try to get a well balanced, all of my food intake and all my nutritional intake. But I still felt empty all the time. And I
mm,
think some of it was just that I am the kind of person that needs a little bit of animal protein,
yeah.
I
I'm really
think,
glad you brought that up because yeah, I've heard of the blood type diet, but yeah, I've never researched it or looked into it. And honestly, I probably knew what my blood type was when I had my kids, but I don't remember what it is
a lot
anymore.
of people aren't even aware. But what I think is really the best approach is looking at everything with a grain of salt, and maybe taking, some aspects of it. Like, I mentioned the blood type diet, but I by no means think that that is something that you should just follow rigid. Absolutely, this is the only way to go. But it has some interesting concepts, and some of those things resonated with me. And
Yeah.
then I don't know if you've heard much of Ayurveda. I've only
Yeah.
dabbled in it a little bit, but
Yeah. I know a little bit about it. Took like a little crash course on it one time and got the basic understanding, but I'm sure a lot of listeners probably don't have a whole lot of knowledge. So I guess we can kind of fill them in on what that is.
yeah, and I'm by no means an expert, but it is an Eastern approach to food and life in general. But there's different doshas, meaning based on our body type, we all are a little bit different. And I personally fit into the Pitta dosha, which we all have a little bit of each one. But just to tie it in, the Pitta dosha also has a very strong digestive system. They call it the fire, and that fits me really well, and kind of ties in with the whole blood type thing, and that I have, stronger digestive acid, and so I can handle a little bit more harder foods, whereas some of the other, like the Kofa, or the Vata is the other one, they don't handle it as well. So, and that's what I just like to take a little bit of different approaches, and kind of try to tie them all in together, and really look at that kind of, it's just a little bit of balance between each one of them.
Yeah.
We don't want to be too rigid. And I think that that's some of the big problem, is that we all get caught up in this, like, rigid concept of, like, no, I can't have any carbohydrates, or no,
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
eating animal products, or I can't have bananas because there's too much sugar in them. It's just too much rigidity can create a lot of problems, because I do personally believe that the best nutritional balance is to just eat a wide variety of different foods, to get all of the wonderful nutrients that nature has to offer.
Yes, I do 100% agree with that. And yeah, jumping into that whole concept of that rigidity, it becomes deprivation. And I feel like when people feel deprived of something, it kind of psychologically does something in the process of trying to attain your goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do have certain hormones. There's things in our system, like our neuropeptide Y, that help to create these cravings for things. And when you deprive yourself of carbohydrates, or whatever it may be that your body's desiring, it's going to offset into a more, like, you deprive yourself of carbohydrates so long when you really need them. One day you're just going to fall off the deep end and just overload on carbohydrates, where
Yeah,
this would let yourself have a little bit here and there, and kind of keep a nice balance, and you probably would never get to that. Which
yeah.
ties in a lot to intuitive eating, which is a really big concept that I think can help. You mentioned the diet noise, and I always thought of myself even as a really healthy eater. I am aware of food. I know what to eat and what not to eat. And when I read this book, and actually have it with me, it's called Intuitive Eating, a
Oh, okay.
revolutionary program that works. It's written by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Raish, which we can certainly get the link to that, because I do love their approach to it. And there's lots of books on intuitive eating, but when I had this concept of, oh, I'm a healthy eater and I do a good job, and then I read this, it started to make me think about all the things that are going on in my head every time I'm making food choices. And sometimes it's just that I'm have so much information that it kind of keeps me from making a good choice. Um, and you don't realize how, I mean, it has a lot of concepts in there. Like it talks about the diet police, like I can't eat those French fries. Those are bad. It's just,
Yeah.
who's the diet police? Challenge them. Don't let anything say that you just cannot have things. So one of the big things I get from intuitive eating and the whole concept when I read this book is that we need to get rid of all of that noise and just go back to, I can eat whatever I want to eat, but what do I want to eat? And then
I
that's
love
where you
that.
really start to tap into, what is my body craving right now? What do I need? How will, if I'm really craving some onion rings right now. So if I eat those onion rings, how will I feel afterwards? And then kind of think about it and remember, gosh, last time I ate onion rings, I felt not so great after I ate them. So maybe that's not the best choice, but to really take that approach to think about what it is that your body's craving, and give yourself that freedom. So if my body is craving those onion rings and I say, you know what, I just really want them, eat a couple onion rings, enjoy them, savor them, and then put them away and don't feel guilt. That's the other problem
Yeah.
I always noticed, that like if I indulged in something, or indulged as I felt like it was, I would still feel guilty afterward. I'd wake up in the morning judging myself over, how good of a job did I eat yesterday? Oh, I ate this thing that was bad. So I have guilt
Yeah.
and I shame myself. It's such a difficult cycle.
Yeah, I really believe that guilt and shame just adds this layer of energy to the whole diet eating lifestyle, to where like if you're trying to make positive gains for yourself, you're only going to hold yourself back by pouring in that negativity of guilt and shame that you did something wrong by cheating or messing up, or yeah,
And
getting
then
off
it
track.
creates the guilt then creates further stress that
Yes,
affects your
stress.
hormones,
Yeah.
affects your next decision making. I mean, because stress is an interesting thing too, because when we put ourselves under chronic stress, stress is a natural thing. It helps to keep, your body awake and ready to take on challenges. But when we are succumbing ourselves to this constant stress, our bodies are getting depleted of nutrients through that stressful time, because your body needs those nutrients to make the hormones to release, to make the cortisol, or on the other side, to make your serotonin and your dopamine that makes you feel good again. If you don't give yourself the right precursors or the foods that help make those hormones, you're never going to get back there. So the problem that we have with that stress cycle is that you're under stress, so you make bad food choices, then you're not getting the right nutrients, so then you're back under stress because you don't feel good, and it just creates this whole horrible cycle. Whereas when we are in those stressful moments, those are the most important times to be making better food choices. Or like if you're going into a busy week and you have a lot of work and a lot of stuff happening, do a little bit of planning on Sunday, so you're not faced with, oh my god, I have to eat right now, I'm so starving, I haven't had anything, I just have to go get fast food because that's the only thing
Yeah.
I can get.
Yeah.
Planning definitely takes a lot of that edge off. But
And I guess as a nutrition coach, you can help people with that planning process, I guess, right? Because we are in
because
such a busy world right now. Everyone is just go, go, go. And I, like in my life coaching field, I've noticed how much depression and anxiety there is. And just this mental health issue going on is just tearing people apart. So I can imagine, people who are already dealing with a very stressful lifestyle and dealing with depression and or anxiety would probably look at, oh no, now you're going to tell me I have to think extra hard about my food choices too. Like I'm just adding yet another thing to my plate. So I guess that's, obviously that would be where hiring a nutrition coach will take that extra load of
You.
responsibility off of your plate because somebody's helping you on the journey.
Yes, I really think of nutritional coaching as first to educate, to teach people just about things, because so many people just are unaware about the horrible things that are in a lot of our processed food, or how good whole foods can be for you. And so first I try to approach it like I'm here to educate, and then also to empower you, to help you to feel strong to make the right decisions. Because if you are under so much stress that you can't get past what to even choose, then you're just going to keep repeating that cycle. So,
Yeah.
one of the first things you really need to look at, even before we start looking at food, is how are you dealing with your stress? Are you getting enough sleep? Because if your stress is through the roof and your sleep is off, and you have other things, you're not exercising or moving your body, like all the great things you can do with nutrition are never really going to come to fruition if you have these other issues in your life that you're not finding a way to balance.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
you mentioned stress and anxiety. I've had issues with anxiety and panic attacks my entire life. And
Wow.
since I've been getting older, I realize more just that taking a little bit of time for yourself is, and it seems so simple, and we all know this. But I'm a mom, and I just adopted a new dog, and I have just a busy life. My kids in baseball, and I work all the time, and if I don't slow down and take, even if it's just 5 minutes to go sit in a quiet room, I can't take care of all the other things in my life. I can't watch my nutrition. I can't take care of my family. And then if I'm not in my full working order, how can I even possibly think about being a caregiver to everyone around me? So
I'm
it,
glad you said that because I've been noticing, and this is a little off topic from nutrition, but I've been noticing a lot of people saying that they feel like they understand that they need to take that me time and that time for themselves to kind of like recharge their own batteries. But when they do, they feel guilty about it. Like when they step away from their responsibilities, whether they take time off work or just, schedule some time to get away without the kids, without the spouse, without the people, then they feel guilty for doing that. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're totally defeating the purpose then by recharging your batteries because you're not going to accomplish what you're setting out to do if you're feeling guilty about it.
completely. And I struggle with that too. As much as I know all these things on my logical side, I still have my emotional side that is chiming in. And sometimes your emotions can be a little skewed. They might not
Yeah.
be able to factor everything in. I know, like, after work, if I take time to go to the gym, I feel guilty that my child is now at his school longer, or in his after school program. But it's like, I do need to remind myself I have to be able to take care of everybody. And if I'm not in good health, no one's going to be there to be taking care of my kid and picking him up on time and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're just doing your kid and everybody else in your life that you care about. You're doing them all favors by taking care of yourself. So if you
And
want, if you have that desire to take care of them, then it just is natural that you would need to take care of yourself. And that's something I'm wanting to help other people understand because I've dealt with that guilt myself too. And I finally feel like I'm coming to a place in my life where, oh, I can actually enjoy like a girl's day and not have my kids and feel okay with that. Like I'm taking care of me.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
very, very difficult. And it's kind of, I think of it a lot as too, is reframing your mindset, kind of like, reframing your mindset and your approach to food with intuitive eating, your stress and the things in your life. Reframe that. I stole this from somebody else, but I remember someone suggesting, when you're taking your kid to school, or you're taking them to, for me, it's baseball practice, or, I have to take the dog on the walk. Don't look at it like you have to do those things, but reframe your mind to say, I get to take my kid to school today. I get to go to my kid's baseball game, because ultimately that's really where I want to be. I don't want to be dealing with all of these other stresses. I want to be with my family and the ones that I
Yeah,
love, and do for them.
I
So,
love
and
that.
and I like how it goes back into the intuitive eating, because, like I said, I find myself sometimes just getting so caught up, like, okay, I need to lose a few pounds. I need to get back on track. So I start thinking about it, and then I have so much noise in my head that I can't even make a decision, and I feel paralyzed. So going back to that intuitive eating, and tell yourself, I can eat whatever I want to eat. I can do whatever I want with food, but what do I want to eat?
Yeah, I
And
love that.
then,
I found when you said that, I found that I've actually already been implementing this with my son. He's got a mild dairy intolerance, meaning he can eat dairy without any immediate repercussions. But if he consumes too much, like say he had cheese at
Mhm.
one point during the day and then another dairy product and then ice cream at the end of the day, he's probably going to wind up with a bellyache. And we discovered this when he was in preschool, and I kind of have a dairy intolerance too. It's not bad, but it's enough that I just get almond milk because it's better than risking any problems with cow's milk. And so we always just consumed almond milk, and my son never consumed cow's milk until he got to preschool, and he was drinking it every day. And each day his stomach pain got worse and worse and worse to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I was contemplating bringing him to the ER because he was in so much pain. Finally put two and two together. He's drinking milk at school. So we cut him off dairy completely, and it made a world of difference. Like so much, not only just his stomach pains went away, but it's like his cognitive ability kind of improved, like all kinds of things improved with it.
brain fog.
So it was pretty amazing, and it kind of motivated me, like I'm going to cut out more dairy too, like I'm going to really limit my cheese intake, and the ice cream is going to be like even more rare special occasions. And yeah, my seasonal allergies are like next to nothing if I'm not consuming any dairy at all, so that's a motivator as well. But now we get to the point where if we're kind of craving ice cream, like hey, it's been a good week, everyone, whatever, kind of like that little reward thing.
Mhm.
Or if the kids are asking for ice cream, I'll just kind of mention, hey, you do know that sometimes this gives you a bellyache. Do you want to risk the bellyache because the ice cream tastes good, or is the ice cream tasting good not worth the bellyache?
How
And
badly do you really want the ice cream?
yes, yes, exactly. And of course, being a 9-year-old boy, he's like, well, I want ice cream. But I have noticed if he ends up getting a little bit of a bellyache afterwards, he doesn't complain. I mean, I've got different things that'll help
Unfortunate.
ease it. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't complain. He's like, okay, I own this. I made this decision and I have to accept the consequence. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
feel like
it's looking at, like, we're really, really lucky. Like years ago, if someone had a dairy intolerance, they were really in a tough spot. But we have almond milk and oat milk and cashew milk, and you can get many different kinds of yogurts made from coconut or everything else, and ice cream. So maybe because sometimes it's not necessarily, do I really want to eat this, but maybe there's something else you can eat that's a little bit better that might not cause the discomfort. So maybe looking into some dairy alternative
Mhm.
ice creams.
Yes,
One of
and
the
I've actually done that before with some success. So yeah, that's a really good
did
point.
they were they receptive?
What's that?
Were your kids receptive to some different things?
Actually, yeah. I have like a ice cream maker, and I tried making a coconut milk ice cream. Just plain vanilla wasn't really a big hit, but I've noticed when I add some like chocolate and peanut butter and different kind of fun flavors, they love it. And then I've also noticed that if you freeze bananas and then throw them in a blender, it makes an ice cream consistency that's like it kind of messes with your head how good it is, and that you feel like you're eating ice cream, but it's like, wait, this feels like it shouldn't be good for me.
I know. I was going to say that because bananas are they make such a great consistency once you freeze them and mix them. My child also loves chocolate. And one recipe that I got once that was a great like dessert treat was you can take avocados and put them in a high powered blender with a little bit of unprocessed cacao powder and some medjool dates. Medjool dates are
Oh,
so sweet, but they're full of fiber and they have so many great nutrients in them. They give you that sweet flavor. And so you mix the avocado, the cocoa powder, and the medjool dates, and it makes the most lovely chocolate pudding. And
wow. I'm gonna have to try that.
this is really good. And he's getting
Yeah.
avocado, and he's getting fiber, and it's not just a high fructose corn syrup snack pack or something.
Yeah.
That same feeling with some high quality nutrients.
Yeah.
So, because one thing I do tend to think about is a lot of times, things are either really like good and are going to be amazing for your body, or they're going to cause a huge detriment to your body. So, and there's just not a lot of things in between. So it's always good to kind of think about, what is this really doing for me? When you're thinking about making your food choices and doing that intuitive eating process, like, is this really what my body is craving right now? Am I going to get the nutrients I need to keep me striving through the rest of the day?
Yeah.
Those are all things to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Your conversation too about like the lactose. So many people have food allergies that are subtle and they don't even know that they have them. So, and especially too with lactose, I know a lot of people that have had no problem eating dairy their whole life, but that enzyme that breaks down lactose as you get older sometimes isn't as effective, or sometimes you just don't have as much of that enzyme. I too have noticed I can't tolerate dairy as much now that I'm older, but I wonder if I've always had a dairy intolerance, because I've had eczema and I've had other signs of allergies.
I have noticed a lot of people cut dairy out who have skin conditions and their skin conditions clear up. So yeah, that is interesting.
As well as, the other big allergen is gluten. And, everybody's so into gluten free. And I don't necessarily know if it's the answer for everybody. But again, if you listen to yourself and you notice that when you eat, those foods that are higher in gluten, you might get a little disrupted. And now, not to say that you can never eat bread. I don't think I handle gluten super well. But there's other types of things. Like if you get Ezekiel bread, is a sprouted grain bread. And then just getting rid of that, because it's sprouted, it gets rid of the outer shell of the wheat, makes it easier to digest. Whereas
Okay.
I don't do as well with just regular bread. Choosing one, slightly different that is sprouted can be easier to digest. So sometimes it's just playing with some different things. Like you said, you learned with your son that the dairy was irritating his stomach, and then, well, let's try to not eat it and see if it gets better. And if it does, that's a good sign too.
Yeah.
Also, nutritionists can help with elimination diets, where if you're having some issues with allergies and you're not really sure what it is, you can go through this process of getting rid of everything that could be causing the allergy, and then slowly bringing them back in one at a time, so you can really evaluate your body and how it's reacting to each of those. So
Yeah.
a nutrition coach can help you with that as well.
Yeah, I feel like though there's a bit of a paradox there. So I'm curious how you, as a nutrition coach, handle the issue of that deprivation problem while doing an elimination diet. Because I'm a huge believer in the elimination diet. I've done it myself. Just by cutting out dairy. It was actually while I was originally breastfeeding my first son, and his colic went away after I cut dairy out. And then that's when my seasonal allergies also went away and I was feeling better. And it was just like, okay, apparently dairy isn't my thing either. I have cut out gluten 100%. And for a while there, I went paleo and cut out all grain 100%. And then I jumped on the carbs are bad wagon for a little while, until I realized, wait a minute, not all carbs are bad. It's not okay to cut everything out. Maybe just eating these processed junk food, high sugar carbs aren't a good idea, but cutting out things like fruits and where carbs are better for you is okay. But the elimination diet process is hard for people, because I feel like people have this like emotional attachment and this bond to food that it's almost like an addiction, I feel like. And how do you help a person break through that addiction so that they don't feel this deprivation while they're eliminating things? And then, like, how do you balance that?
That's a great question. One of the good things about an elimination diet is that it is short term. It's not something that you're really trying to maintain for months and months and months at a time. It's usually looked in a smaller segment, and no doubt about it, it can be very challenging. My sister-in-law right now is going through trying to identify what's causing her problems, and she's like, oh my God, I can't have eggs in my next segment, and I love eggs. And it's like, okay, though, it's only going to be, I think can't eat eggs for 4 weeks, but after that, it'll get back to normal. And so I think one of those big things is just reminding yourself that this is really trying to help you figure things out. And it's not that you can never eat those things again, but we just need to take a little break so you can really identify it, because the ultimate goal is really feeling good.
Yeah.
If you've been plagued with, allergies and issues to gluten or dairy or soy or whatever it could be, and you haven't been able to identify it, like I think sometimes there's just a lot of excitement in really trying to say, gluten has been causing all of my issues, and now I don't eat that anymore, and I feel amazing. If you focus on the positive outcome of the elimination diet and reminding yourself that it's not going to last forever. Like I think, so many people when they start a diet like keto, for example, when they're thinking I can't eat carbs, it's not just like I'm just doing this for a short term. It's like, I'm never going to eat carbs again. One of the things that makes me laugh in the intuitive eating book is she talks about a lot of concepts that I think we all recognize, but one of them is the concept of the Last Supper. Like, I'm going to start keto on Monday, so I need to eat everything in sight on Sunday because it's the last time I'm going to be able to eat, and it's this trick your mind plays on you. So
we all do that. I have had quite a few Last Suppers in my life.
It sounds like you have just gone from, one set of diet rules to another, and so many of them conflict with each other that you had to be coming out of that just being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to eat.
Yeah, and I know I'm not alone, and I've just gotten to the point now where I'm just exploring the intuitive eating. I I know that fruits and vegetables are so important nutrition wise, so it's like, you know what, I'm going to focus on trying to eat more of them. I know the things that I don't feel good when I eat them, so I'm going to try to avoid them, but I'm not going to do it to the point where I feel like I'm completely depriving myself. And I'm just going with the flow, getting to know my body and trying to implement self-love along the way. But it is, up to that point, it's been so confusing and so frustrating. And there's diet noise. And I think everybody's kind of frustrated with that, where, this person says keto's good. This person says keto's terrible. This person says be a vegetarian and a vegan. And this person says, no, our bodies are designed to eat animal meat. And this person says, paleo is the way to go. And this person says, no, it's not.
Yeah, you shouldn't be eating corn, but this one says this corn is the best thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just really feel strongly is sometimes we just need to shut it all off and just like give yourself permission, unconditional permission to eat.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to all be super teeny tiny. We need to live healthy, and that's part of it is internal and feeling good and what makes you feel better. For me, it helps sometimes when I feel like I'm getting caught up, because I also do read so much about food that I get a lot of these messages in there, and it's just to remind myself that whatever I want to eat, I can eat whatever it is I want, but when you think about it, it's like, so I just learned that bacon has sodium nitrate in it, and that's linked to cancer. So do I really want to eat the bacon? Just be in tune with yourself and really ask yourself what makes sense. So, or do I really want to keep going on the positive route that I have been going? Once you take away, like you mentioned, the deprivation, something saying, because I guarantee it, and I can't be alone here. If someone says you cannot have that, like that's the only thing I want.
You're definitely not alone. It's like it's hardwired into most of us, if not all of us. That's all we want when we say we can't have it.
And so amazing things can happen when you really like change your mindset and just let yourself accept, I can eat what I want to. What do I really want to eat? So
yeah, I love that. I realized that we didn't really dive into your backstory. We just really dove into just the excitement of talking about this topic in general, but let's learn a little bit more about what brought you on this journey, what made you passionate about nutrition and led you to ultimately study it and become a nutrition coach. Fill us all in.
Well, thank you for asking that, Jami. I think anybody that's in health and wellness have had some journey to get them to that point. So, and I can distinctly remember a point in my 20s. Like I ate whatever I wanted growing up. I grew up in the 80s, and it was the land of fast food and convenience items and TV dinners and just packaged everything. And that's what I grew up eating, because that's kind of all we knew. We thought everything was just fine. And then I remember once in my 20s, somebody saying, I have a cold. I'm going to eat this soup with all these vegetables in it. And it was like a light bulb went off. It's just like, oh my God, what we eat and put into our bodies does affect who we are and how we feel. And, it seems so rudimentary, but I do remember just having that moment of realizing that, okay, yeah, what we choose does make a difference. So, and then when I got into my 30s, like, so I spent my 20s trying to like just be healthy and work out, and I would get no fat cheese, or I would, kind of play into a lot of that diet noise we refer to. And then in my 30s, I had my son, so I had a baby, and I just, that year or so after, I could never really recover. I felt sick all the time. I felt like I always had a cold. Now, I would, first year with a child, you're not sleeping a lot, and
Right.
that can be challenging. But I also just wasn't taking care of myself either. And then I read a book. It was called Super Immunity by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and it opened my eyes. He's a big proponent of plant-based eating, which I do think is great, as long as you're listening to yourself. Like I
Yeah.
think I use predominantly the plant-based eating as my own method, but I have learned that I need to interject a few things, because when I read his book, I'm like, I'm going to go plant-based, and I tried just being vegetarian for a year, and I still ate some cheese and a little bit of animal products, but no meat. And it didn't feel right for me. So I felt like I needed to delve further. And then I discovered the holistic nutrition program at the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, which is, we've met through that school. And
Yes.
it's really awesome, because it's not your typical registered dietitian where you're prescribing you must eat these calories, and it's just really rigid. It looks at the holistic approach, like what we've been talking about. Is, it's sleep, it's your exercise, it's your stress level, and all of these things go into being healthy and making good food choices. Down to, I mean, we propose a lot about soul food diet, and it's not, it's an acronym for seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. And those, if you've kind of used that as your guideline, that can kind of help you make healthier food choices. But I find that it also gives me a peace of mind, because I feel like I'm looking out for my community by choosing local foods. You're supporting your local farmer, but it's also not getting transported across the United States and creating that bigger carbon emission. So it's all,
Yeah. Or being mass produced, which, there's a whole lot of other factors that go into mass production.
I know, like learning about things, like that conventional strawberries get sprayed. They're picked when they're not red, and then they get sprayed with some chemical to help get them to that point so they can stay fresh and be transported a million miles away. And
Yeah, I've often thought about, how quickly my fruit, produce, whatever can go bad in my refrigerator. And it's like, what prevented this from going bad when it got picked, when it got boxed, when it got transported, when it got delivered, when it got put on the shelf? Like, there's a whole process that goes on. How did it not get bad in the process? But now I have it in my fridge, and yeah.
And you think about that strawberry or whatever it is in your fridge, and it's like, how long ago was this actually growing and attached to the plant?
I've often
And
wondered that, and how did
less nutrients you really have in that food, So whereas, like, I love to go to farmers markets. I mean, I'm a nutritionist, so that's my jam. I just love to see all the fresh food. But when I buy things there, I find that even, they're organic and they haven't been sprayed with anything to help them last longer, but because you get them closer to when they were ripe and picked, they last longer in your refrigerator.
Yeah, isn't
So
that interesting?
completely.
Yes.
So yeah, my food journey has really just been to try to just increase my own health and longevity. I want to be here for a long time, and I want to feel good. But one thing I do always want to add, if I haven't stressed it enough, is that everybody's different, and you do need to find that balance with yourself, because there's some foods that I just love, and I know that might not be the healthiest choice for me, but I also want to live my life with joy. And if, occasionally eating a cheeseburger makes me happy, then, that's not the worst thing. Now, I do
Yes.
try to cook healthier, get some nice organic ground beef, make them smaller. We don't have giant half-pound burgers or anything in my house, but you find some balance there. You don't want to deprive yourself of anything if it's something that you really, really want. But think about why you're eating them. Oftentimes, we find that we're overeating and going to the snack counter because I had a bad day and I want some chips to make me feel better.
Yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of people that will try to fill emotional voids with food. And I've gotten caught in that too, where it's like, you know what, I'm just really stressed out right now, and just a chocolate cake sounds great.
Yeah, I think it's going to fix all my problems. And gosh, you know what? Every time I try to do that, the chocolate cake tastes good for a minute, but then I feel horrible and my problems almost seem like they got worse.
Yes, exactly. But trying to get, because I don't know, I've noticed this for myself. Like there's times where, yeah, I can easily stress eat, and I'll even talk to myself in my head like, okay, chill out, you're stressed. There are other ways to manage the stress in a healthy way. The chocolate cake may not be the most healthy way, and think about how you're going to feel afterwards. Yeah, I'm probably going to feel like crap, but then I'll still be like, I don't care. I don't care if I'm going to feel like crap. I'm going to eat the chocolate cake anyway.
Well, and that's I said, sometimes when you go through the intuitive eating process and you're like, I really do want to eat the chocolate cake. That's okay. Let yourself have some without overindulging in the whole cake.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Move on. Don't feel guilty of that choice, But if you really make more thought before you make the choice, you have less likely to feel guilt afterwards, because it's like, no, I really did take this into consideration. I wanted it. I had a few bites, or I had a small piece. Move on. It's
Yeah.
okay.
How do you advise somebody to just move on? Because I know there's a lot of people, and I've worked with people like this before too, that get caught up in the binge eating, where it's like all sense just shuts off, all willpower or motivation to continue to make good choices is just gone. They say, okay, you know what? I don't care if I'm going to feel like crap later. I'm going to eat this chocolate cake because I am in a bad mood. And then they eat, half a piece because it's, oh, just half a piece is okay. Get through that, and it's like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna eat the whole thing, and or the whole piece. And then after that they're like, you know what, I already made it this far, I think I'm gonna have another piece.
A whole nother cake.
Yeah, and then it just spirals out of control. And I can admit I've been in that like mentality where I just don't care anymore, and that's how I've gained weight. I've gotten into this weird, like, it was, I don't know, a while back when I was battling with depression and anxiety myself, more so depression than anything. And yeah, I just quit caring. I just didn't care anymore. You know what? This chocolate cake tastes good. I'm not even gonna think about the fact that I'm gonna taste like crap afterwards. And it turns into this perpetual cycle. And so I guess, like, what would your advice be for somebody who is almost kind of addicted and they get caught up in that binge eating roller coaster where all sense and logic gets shut off? They don't care. They're going to eat the entire cake.
I personally feel like the best way to really start delving into the intuitive eating concept is to start by keeping a food log. And it not just like you're writing down just what you're eating, but write down how you feel before you make the food choice. How do you feel when you're eating the food? And then how do you feel after? Don't make any changes to anything. Don't try to restrict anything, but just start by just recording what's going on. If you're in that mode and you're writing down, I am super emotional and stressed, and I looked to the chocolate cake, and then I ate the whole chocolate cake, and then afterward I felt horrible. Just seeing that written down, and it acknowledges it, and it gives it some validity, so that you can say, this is really what's going on with me. It's not just something I pushed aside and now I'm ignoring, but it actually can help you realize what you're going through when you get there, because eating does release some dopamine and some of those feel good chemicals for us. And so it is kind of tough when you are facing that. But if we can look to find other ways, to get some of those positive emotions, I mean, once you can identify what's going on with your food, like I said, and starting with that food log, if you then start to find other outlets for your emotions, like think of other things that make you feel good, like even sometimes just fake it till you make it, like go take a walk around the block just to think about if you want to eat that chocolate cake.
Yeah.
And then you find, gosh, just getting outside, I feel better just by taking a walk around the block, so sometimes I feel like just delaying it to think about it, and then writing it down and keeping track of your feelings. And then ideally, if you're still struggling with it, then go bring it back to a nutritional coach, and look, this is my week, this is what I ate, and I feel horrible for all the things I did. And but then you have something concrete to look at, and something so you can see, okay, so last week you had this trigger. Now every time you get in that stressful moment, rather than just turning to chocolate cake, I want you to think about your emotions and think about your feelings and what other things could you do rather than turning to the cake. Go
Yeah.
for a walk. You could, read a book to your child, find something more positive to go with.
Yeah, I love that. And it just kind of solidifies how important it is to have that coach, that accountability partner, that educated person to guide you on the journey. Like this has been really eye-opening for me too, because I've been to counseling well, my counselor was kind of both a counselor and a life coach. So I've gotten to experience how important it is to be guided through the emotional process of life as far as just your life choices, but it's so important to have a coach for the different facets of life. I mean, just like if you're going to join a softball team, you're probably going to need a softball coach. So, of course, if you're wanting to make healthy changes for your body and for your lifestyle, then having a nutrition coach would make sense to guide you through that process of, yeah, attaining your goals.
So I currently am available. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so if you're local, I could certainly work to meet in person. But I also am open to doing coaching through Zoom. So best way to reach out to me and find me is, first, you can follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Merrill 77. You can also send me an instant message if you'd like to contact in person, or if we want to work out an opportunity to do some online coaching too. We can work through that.
Yeah, that's awesome. The link to Rebecca's Instagram will be posted below in the description. So you guys can feel free to reach out to her on social media if you're interested in looking into nutrition coaching.
Well, great. I appreciate being here today, Jami. I'm just really excited with what you're doing, and I love just the awareness you are creating for people, whether it's awareness about ourselves or our environment or our foods that we're eating. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on too, because yes, I do love helping inspire people, open minds, and talking about anything across the spectrum that can do that is wonderful. So yes, food is a huge important factor to that whole journey. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight and your expertise and yeah, being available to anybody else who needs help on their journey too.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I would love to be back in the future if you ever want to talk more.
Absolutely. I'd love that. All right. If there's anything else, is there anything else you wanted to add, or you feel we covered
I
everything?
love, like I said, just like check out some of my Instagram. I do a good job. I talk a lot about intuitive eating and a lot of the concepts we talked today there, and would love to chat more with anyone that has any questions.
Yes. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you
Yeah,
next
thank
time.
you.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.